Who's ready to win the day in sports? I know you are. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com, Monday through Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Justin Fensterman, and let's break everything down from a fantasy sports perspective. What is going on, everybody? My name is Justin Fensterman, and welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily here on the Elite Plus Network, powered by the good old FG, FantasyGuru.com, where you can find all of my work and this hat for that matter, too. We got a nice little store that has awesome shirts, hats, merch. You're part of the Elite Mafia, then you know who you're riding with here, because we don't leave anybody behind. We make sure we put you in the position to win. That's what it's all about here. I'm still filling in for the one and only Ray Flowers. He will be back next week. So Ray's been off all week on vacation, sipping on some tiki drinks. Ray Flowers special right there. One time I actually had a very fun night back in 2019 in New York City at a tiki drink spot with Ray Flowers. It was a good time, and no joke, Ray, at the end of the night, as we were leaving, he takes a coaster. In fact, it's this coaster that I still magically have. He takes this coaster and he goes, "Hey, take this," and shoves it in my pocket. I still have it. Kind of weird, but Ray will be back next week. You know, it was not weird, but was awesome. The MLB trade deadline, what we saw happen, especially towards the end in the afternoon, was incredible. We could go over a bunch of deadline deals, and Ray coming off vacation on Monday, I'm sure we'll talk about all of the impact, especially, by the way, for you monthly rankings people out there, because the trade deadline doing what it does, it's shifting things all of a sudden. The Seattle Mariners, I got my Griffey threads on right here. Let's face it. You could talk about Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, all those guys, Sammy Sosa. You go to the pitching front, Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine. You go up and down the list, but let me tell Frank Thomas. But Ken Griffey Jr. was the guy, as somebody who back in the 1990s, and I've been actually thinking a lot about this. And I'm going to be talking quarterbacks. And by the way, Russell Clay is going to stop by in a little bit to talk quarterbacks, but I was actually thinking about this because Ryne Sandberg unfortunately passed away. And for those that were Cubs fans and even baseball fans in the 80s and the 90s, I mean, Ryne Sandberg was such an impactful player and force. But when I was a kid, which was now because I was born in 87. So when I was a kid in the 90s, that athlete for me, because there were a lot of athletes, and this is before we really poo-pooed these steroid users. Maybe we questioned things by the time we hit 1999 who might be on something. But these power hitters, some of them were our heroes. But someone who was always one of my favorite athletes, if not my favorite athlete, is Ken Griffey Jr. And Ken Griffey Jr., as someone who was a kid back in the 90s, he was in your face. The backwards cap, all of you know that. Rock streams and shows with me that see me, I rock the backwards baseball cap. People critique it. I really don't care. It's a look. I like it. The kid did it. Ken Griffey Jr. To have a dad, by the way, be a professional player, and then you come along, you having to live up and exceed it. That's something very special right there. Not only a good hitter, but also a good base runner and very good in the field too. Always hustled. And someone who I will say to this day, I don't think he was on steroids. So between the Mariners adding Eugenio Suarez, I mean, they had Naylor too. Their lineup is fierce with hitting. So between that and Ryne Sandberg passing away, I think I can speak for a lot of people that were baseball fans, no matter what teams they rooted for. But I could speak for a lot of baseball fans that were kids in the 1990s and say Ken Griffey Jr. was the guy. I mean, the video games, the merch, how great it was. I remember because, again, I don't like to admit this too much, but I did root for the Mets growing up. I still am a Mets fan, but I would go to Yankee Stadium because the Mariners were my AL team. Those mid-90s, I mean, you look at this jersey, you think of Edgar Martinez, Joey Cora. I mean, you think about Jay Buhner on those teams. They had a fun team, the Mariners, in the mid-90s, and anchored by Ken Griffey Jr. It was just great. The big unit was there, Randy Johnson, who I've mentioned this before, that I was at Randy Johnson's 300th win. It happened in D.C. I forget if it was I think it was at Nats Park before. It was after RFK. But I was there, sitting there in the cold, watching potentially the final 300-game winner because pitchers these days, there's a lot more, and we clearly saw it, by the way, from the trade deadline. There's a lot more emphasis, and it's so brilliant and smart because if you're going to have your starting pitching go for fewer innings and you're going to be more conservative, and it's not going to be like your Greg Mannix and you're going full games like it's nothing. If you're going to be that conservative, which in this day and age with the game of baseball, pitchers aren't pitching as deep into games. Pitchers getting hurt, their innings are being managed after that. They're being watched. Rotations are growing. And now, as we saw from teams like the Yankees and the Mets at the trade deadline, teams are investing a lot more and trading prospects. I'm not talking top end blue chip prospects, but some of them, but pretty good. I mean, look at what the Padres just did. Padres just traded their top guy in their system, and now on the A's, and they get Mason Miller. I mean, that's huge right there. So there's more investment being placed and more emphasis being placed on these bullpens. And let's face it, it just makes sense because these starting pitchers aren't like the ones we saw in the 90s. Randy Johnson, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, Greg Maddux, all those guys. Kerry Wood. I mean, I could go down the list, up and down the list. And the thing is, it's different now. Pitching is different. And it's funny because when I explain the Randy Johnson story to my nephews who are 10 and 8, they don't understand it fully on just how important it was being at a game where you see a chance of history you might not see again. We may not and probably won't see another 300-game winner in our lifetime. Maybe we will, but I mean, Paul Skeens, he going to be that guy? Who knows what the future holds for him? His team certainly isn't helping matters getting to that 300 mark, but teams don't care about that. It's about, at this point, making sure these arms are available for the postseason when it matters most to them to win a championship. And to do that and to double down, you get yourself a bullpen and good bullpen. And for what the Mets did, for instance, needed to do it. Absolutely. Bullpen needed some help, but their starters were starting to get banged up. Starters did a great job. But that now you're seeing a little bit, as I've mentioned before, the wheels starting to fall a little bit. They just shored up their bullpen. So you're seeing these teams really invest into their bullpen. And that just shows the future of the game and where the game is going from the pitching side of it. So if you're sitting there at a game live especially, and you're sitting there and you see a pitcher that's on the cusp of throwing a complete game in general, a complete game shutout, that's special. That's awesome. You don't see that necessarily as much anymore. It used to be, everyone wants to be at a no-hitter. Everyone wants to be at a perfect game. Well, hell, I'll say this. I was happy I was at that 300th win for Randy Johnson when he was on the San Francisco Giants at the end of his career. Might not see it again. And you're going to see more teams that buy more bullpen arms at the deadline moving forward. Because if they can have their starters just go 6 innings, 7 max, why not? Why? I mean, you're investing into these arms. They could get them out of there at 6. Yeah, you think, well, especially in the postseason, you think, well, why not keep the pitcher in? Nope. At the end of the day, bullpen arms. They're getting strong bullpen arms, these teams, and these teams that are contending and everything like that. So that's one of the lessons we learned from this very, very busy trade deadline. I mean, Houston getting Correa, very interesting there. I mean, Philadelphia making a move, getting a pitcher. Blue Jays getting pitching. The Mets, by the way, not only getting bullpen help, but also getting Cedric Mullins. So we'll see if they got the upgrade that they want. I know they were deep in talks for Lewis Robert. And it just seemed like the asking price for him just went up and up and up and up. So very active trade deadline. Ray Flowers, like I said, back with you next week. And I'll be back on Wednesdays too, so don't think I'm going anywhere just yet. But Ray Flowers will be back, and I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about this very, very active trade deadline. I think trade deadline days are just awesome. I think they're great, especially whether it's baseball or basketball. I mean, football is always fun too. But, man, the NBA, especially in the MLB this year, woo, a lot of fun, a lot of great times right there. Let's talk about, before we get to Russell Clay, what's on the agenda. So I've heard from a few of you regarding yesterday's kind of auction powwow strategy talk, and I'm very appreciative of what I'm getting because you don't really think about this kind of stuff. Well, if you go back to previous episodes throughout the week, you'll see the other positions getting previewed. And believe we started off, we go all the way back. We started off at the running back position. I talked with Tyler Beaker earlier in the week about favorite targets and giving all of you a glimpse of some of the content that's out there for the Fantasy Guru Draft Guide. That's really a season-long guide and hangs with you. To get it, though, you got to go to this link if you're not part of the Elite Mafia. This is a free show here. This is our extension reaching out to you saying, hey, water's warm. Come join the Elite Mafia. We offer a wide variety of sports, and within the sports, we offer a wide variety of support, content, and picks for that matter. And when it comes to betting, when it comes to DFS, when it comes to season long, the Manzifesto, Jeff Manz's Manzifesto, who, by the way, 2 p.m. Eastern, make sure you catch Jeff on Elite Sports on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. The Manzifesto is out. You want someone's draft plan. And I'm going to just say this, and yeah, I'm going to give the content providers and everything else a little bit of credit here. You know, content providers that you're subscribing for, we are here for you to give you everything. And by everything, we mean there's a player we like, we're expecting to give it to you as well. Nothing to hide. And there was a time period where you had people that would hide certain players, especially when DFS is still all the rage, but especially when it was coming up. You see, especially a lot of these analysts, the DFS analysts, really try to hoard their lineup because they're going against the field in a mega multi-entry dollar contest or whatever. So this is why I'm telling you, when you sign up at fantasyguru.com, you want Jeff Manz's draft plan. Jeff Manz outlines his entire draft plan in his Manzifesto. Ideal picks per round where they're going, updates based on new average draft position data throughout the rest of the summer. He gives the exact blueprint. You can go and you can read it, and then you can draft everything you hear on Elite Sports. You can have why does Jeff make this decision? Why is he into this player? Everything that you need, because we've got a hell of a lot of content right now that's out at fantasyguru.com and more to come out. But you want Jeff Manz's exact draft plan, it's out. Big read through it. You learn something, because it's not all about, hey, just draft this guy because of this. The importance of, and I see a lot of your comments on X too, which, by the way, you can follow me at Fensty Sports, FENSTY Sports on X and Instagram for that matter. Fensty in Discord at fantasyguru.com, FENSTY. But Jeff talks about the importance of the outside factors. It's not just, well, he did this last year, ha! No, it's not just that. It's, why did he do that last year? And why will this player do that again this year? It's very easy for me to go and look at Trey McBride, and I know it, we're talking quarterbacks, but an example. It's very easy to look at someone like Trey McBride and say, well, Trey McBride, last couple of years, over 100 targets. Done, research finished. No. The research isn't finished there. The coaching system, has it changed? Okay, no. We see it. Let's look at other things. Well, but what if his target volume does go down? His touchdown volume isn't really there. He barely got into the end zone last couple of years. So how does that change things a little bit? That's the example. It's not just what they did last year. It's what they did last year, but now you're taking draft price into effect. You're taking the system into effect. You're taking the offensive line into effect. That's huge. Before working with Jeff, I never really thought about that. Even when I was producing other sports radio shows, I never really thought of, when looking at some of these quarterbacks, and now even looking at those Jalen Hurts types back then that had that strong protection, I didn't think, well, why is the quarterback just so great? Well, part of the reason is the protection is huge. And especially if you're not getting the ball out quick enough, you need that protection. You need time to find your targets. So that's why when it comes to the fantasy football draft guide that we have in the Manifesto, I cannot speak more highly of it. I've been reading through it because I just like to get inside Jeff's mind and find out why he thinks certain things. Maybe I have a little bit of a differing opinions at times, but that's why we're all in this, because we all want to do as much research as possible, but learn how this game works so that we can make these decisions and we can become better fantasy players. So for those that want to go to the link, join the Elite Mafia this year, there are separate packages, and then there's an all-in package. The separate packages for season-long, betting, DFS. But if you want to go in, you go all in. You get everything and access to our site live streams, all of our articles that we put out there, all of our podcasts that we put out there, betting, all of our bets, our Discord, which we have a multitude of channels for all sports, but specifically for football. You have a commissioner issue, we have a commissioner channel. We're watching it. Dynasty formats. I mean, Russell Clay's going to be joining me in a little bit. He's Mr. Dynasty. He's in there. You have questions about, keepers still. You're still deciding last-second keepers. We have a keeper room for that. You want to just react on Sundays. Well, the Man's Cave, that's what it's there for. Watching football, just reacting. And just talking about, wow, like these players are working out and all celebrating when our favorite plays of the week work out. And trying to work through those struggles too. We're all about that at the site. And I'm going to continue to say this because for the basketball sector, which I help lead up there, I think it's very important to teach that process. That's why I do my what I call campfire chats before the NBA season starts. So we can talk about DFS. We can talk about contest selection strategy. And by the way, for those that are with this show regularly, you do know that this show is very versatile. Ray handles a lot of baseball. I do a little bit of baseball. We both do a lot of football. And then Wednesdays during the NBA season, it's going to be a big basketball day because when it comes to fantasy football and all that we have to offer with any of those packages, when you go to the link, that's one thing. But we offer you more opportunities to win, especially in other sports too. Even our racing team, I talked with Rich Mileto earlier in the week, coming off a very awesome betting time. But it's not just, here are your picks, see you later. It's, why are we making the picks? We are here for you. Cannot speak more highly of that because there are people out there that just want the picks. Others want to learn the process. You go to that link, you sign up, you ride with the Elite Mafia, and you learn how to trust that said process right there. So, by the way, looking at some other quarterbacks now and where I've been kind of ending up, let me talk about that a little bit. Because so far in my drafts, I find myself landing just one of a few people. And this is where, as you see what I'm talking about on the show today, when looking at a quarterback, and again, we have to look at what the system is and what their system is. Did they necessarily, the quarterback, change? Because, look, Geno Smith, hard to tell how much he's going to be throwing. I mean, now that he's with Vegas, Genti's going to be a big part of this. So, how is that going to impact Geno? So, even though you see the most pass attempts there, that's where we have to be careful. That's where we absolutely have to be careful. Aaron Rodgers on a different team, he's not going to be throwing as much. At least I don't think so. To me, he's not going to be getting 584. Not on this Pittsburgh team. It's going to be a lot of running too. So that's where we have to remember when looking at last year's stats. But here's what I will talk about, and that's draft capital right now. And one of the things I've noticed, and looking on draft boards, and I look all over for draft boards for different sites, best ball and redraft too. Right now, I'm thinking with a redraft mindset. And a lot of unless I specify here when talking about this, I'm talking mainly one quarterback leagues. It's just very easy to gauge and to connect and talk about quarterbacks to target versus not. But when you add Superflex or 2 QB, naturally changes the game, changes the demand for the quarterback. So that's going to naturally move them up. But one of the things I've noticed, not really with guys like Allen and Lamar Jackson, but beyond them, I've started to see a little bit more of separation. I've started to see some of the other quarterbacks like Joe Burrow. I don't want to say necessarily drop, but I've started to see someone like Joe Burrow move down just a touch right there. And when you're looking at that elite tier of quarterbacks, that he's kind of the outlier here of the difference there, though. One of these things not like the other, and that's because Joe Burrow is not as much of a runner as these other quarterbacks that are being drafted right by him. And if you want to go all in for an elite quarterback, and there are many different styles of QB draft, you go elite quarterback in one of the top 5, and Allen, Jackson, Burrow, Daniels, Hurts. Hurts, by the way, especially with the tush push still active and allowed, I'm a little bit surprised that I'm seeing on average that you could get Jalen Hurts towards the end of the fourth, or in the middle rather, of the fourth round. Now, I mean, that's what we're looking at. If you really think about it, I'm looking at Jalen Hurts and I'm looking at some latest average draft position data, which I just look for a range. And I can get in certain leagues, even in 12-teamers, I'm starting to think that we could get Jalen Hurts in that 5th round. If I can get Jalen Hurts in that 5th round, I'm happy as hell. How can you not be? How can you not be? You talk about protection. You talk about some of the targets he has. I know people are concerned health-wise. Okay, whatever about A.J. Brown at times. Doesn't concern me with Hurts. Hurts has that rushing upside, that mobility. You know he's going to score a bunch of touchdowns himself for at least one more year. I mean, the value on him is absolutely extreme. And I know that Lamar Jackson threw over 40 touchdowns last year, and that really shows the difference between them when it comes to where they're going. Lamar, I'm seeing him toggle, not really in the 2nd round, actually. He's a solidified 3rd round pick. But to have the opportunity to get Jalen Hurts in the 5th round of a 12-team league, one quarterback, I'm very in on that. I am. You're telling me I start out with a couple of wide receivers, or maybe even a wide receiver tight end, then maybe shore up another wide receiver and then get a running back, then I can still get Hurts potentially. I'm just noticing that some of these other quarterbacks are starting to shift down just a little bit, and I'm going to keep watching that. If you want a player, you pay for the player. In auctions, you're not going to get that price break, I'm noticing. It's if you want Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen especially, you're going to be spending upwards of $30 for them, maybe even more. I don't know if you're going to get in a $200 budget, one quarterback starting league. I don't think you're going to get to 40 with them, but you're definitely, in my opinion, for those two are going to get to 30. Then with Joe Burrow, Daniels, and Hurts, that's the big question. I think they're still going to easily go in the 20s. I think we'll have to see with Burrow, but those, at least I could see Daniels and Hurts going in the 20s. I don't see them necessarily reaching the 30s. Maybe Burrow, because everybody knows that he has the targets. He throws a lot. The defense stinks, so he's going to have to throw them back into games. So when it comes to Joe Burrow, I don't think you're going to have to spend 30 on him in auctions, but you're in the 20s with them. But then there's that big drop-off, not only in auctions, but in snake drafts too. Noticing that, because now you're looking at potentially a 3-round difference, and this is where the sweet spot lies. And it's with a guy by the name of Patrick Mahomes. And Mahomes right now going as a end of 6th, early 7th round pick, as I've seen on the latest boards. It's hard for me to completely get away from Patrick Mahomes. And, you know, I'm not going to forget that when it comes to, I know he isn't the same as he used to be, but at the end of the day, he's still going to throw a lot. Last year, I mean, he threw 581 times still. It's still a lot of quarterbacks. That's still a lot of throws. And yeah, the touchdowns the last few years aren't what we had seen the previous few, but he's still throwing a lot of touchdowns. This isn't, we're paying 3rd, 4th round value for Patrick Mahomes. No, this is 7th round value Patrick Mahomes. And when you look at the accuracy, he's still been consistent. He has been. And yeah, his yardage has gone down just a little bit, but not to the point where you can expect a major, major drop-off And yeah, he throws a few picks. We've seen double digits, but he throws a lot. At the end of the day, that is what we're looking at. We are looking at how much is this guy going to throw? And Patrick Mahomes was up there, ranked third last year. So for me, I'm still in on him. The accuracy is still there. He's got the weapons, he's got the targets. I talked about a couple of days ago that I'm still in on Travis Kelce. How can you not be? I don't care about the end zone going into this year. That to me, that doesn't matter as much. You're not spending a third round, fourth round pick on him anymore. No, you're spending like an eighth round pick on him, a seventh round pick on him in 12 team leagues, non tight end premium, of course. So the ask and the demand isn't as much. One of the reasons why last year I loved Joe Burrow so much, and you're coming off previous year where it's okay, maybe you start to question his health a little bit. But one of the reasons why I loved Joe Burrow so much last year is because this guy you knew was going to throw a ton, and he is being drafted in the seventh, eighth round. So yeah, again, is this guy going to run for a bunch of touchdowns and yards? No, he's not. He's not. But now the asking price has doubled essentially for Joe Burrow this year. And that's where we have to think about whether or not we trust some of these guys. Because when you're trusting someone for sincere capital, you want to make sure you're going to be getting close to your return. And we can't control injuries or things that are out of our control. But when I'm seeing Patrick Mahomes be as accurate as he's been, when I'm seeing him throw, yeah, his touchdowns had gone down if you look at the last 2 years compared to the previous few. Yes. Travis Kelce getting older. Yes. Him aging a little bit more. Yes. But at the same time, if it's one thing if he wasn't accurate, but he has been, and he's still flirting with 600 times. So for me, I'm thinking that Patrick Mahomes is a safe target, an absolute safe target. Could he end up as maybe a top 5 guy again, which he flirted with? I believe in certain formats, depending on the scoring, he was in that top 5. I'm fine with that. And in auctions, by the way, he could go for like 10 to 12 bucks. I'm fine with that. I'll spend that money on a running back. I'm totally cool with that. Like tight end, quarterbacks in auctions, there's a major, major drop-off. And a lot of your top 12 quarterbacks, a lot of them, the majority of them, I want to go out and limb and say, are going to be 10 bucks or less. And that's huge right there. Whereas, look, the top 5 in drafts, you know that draft stock, 3rd to 5th round right now. That's why I'm so attracted to Jalen Hurts. Because with Jalen Hurts, it's less of a hit. And yeah, who has a bigger ceiling between Hurts and Lamar? Well, I'd give it to Lamar. You know what you're getting with Lamar. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you could save a few rounds and still get a hell of a reliable quarterback in Jalen Hurts, why not? He'd do it on his own. He's very athletic. So that's why, to me, for the sweet spot of quarterback that I'm finding myself in, Hurts is very attractive to me where he's at. And we'll see what happens with Joe Burrow over these next few weeks. But Hurts right now, very attractive. I think Bo Nix is set to have a very strong year. You talk about a very strong supporting cast. I love that Denver locked up Sutton. And Bo Nix, we just saw the gradual improvements. We saw him do it with his legs a little bit at the beginning of the year. But then we saw much better throws. And you can look at fantasyguru.com and our offensive line breakdowns. Just such an amazing review. And you don't have better protection than in Denver and for Bo Nix right now. So that's going to be very fun for Bo Nix. And I'm fine with where he's going because I was looking at this the other day where he's been going lately. Bo Nix, you could get this guy in like the 8th, 9th round, I feel like, in a lot of leagues. He's kind of dropped a little bit. So these are guys that you absolutely can look to get and save up, especially when you're in auctions. I'm trying to kind of keep the auction talk in here just so you can kind of relate for those that maybe want to try fantasy football auctions for the first time. So beyond that, there are other quarterbacks that we're seeing now go right inside the top 100 that I'm intrigued. guys like Dak Prescott too that I'm going to get a share of. Caleb Williams, I've been all over. I've been talking about him on a lot of streams. Reconstructed offensive line in Chicago. Ben Johnson there. We saw Caleb Williams improve. That's something that I noticed about these rookie quarterbacks between Williams and even May and him and Bo Nix. We saw gradual improvement from them throughout the season. And now going into this one for the draft capital and draft costs, that's where you could get some very nice value. So what you see here, you're seeing just some of the leaders from last year and some of the cheaper guys when it comes to auctions, so that again, spend on your favorite target that's been going in the first and second round in snake drafts, because you can get so many of these quarterbacks. Like you can get tight ends, so many of these quarterbacks for single digits. That's why, again, auctions are just so awesome. Just like my guest here from fantasyguru.com, it is Russell Clay. What's going on, Russ? How you doing?
What's going on, Fensty? How we doing this morning?
Good, man. Good. Let me ask you this, dude. Are you as excited as I am about Caleb Williams? Now there's some new protection, new coach there. It's loaded with some weapons to throw to. We saw improvements from last year throughout the year. Are you pumped about Caleb Williams? Because the draft stock and draft capital really isn't that much of a hit.
Love what they got going on. In theory, this should all work, right? In theory, Roma Dunze should develop. DeAndre Swift should turn into some version of, a lower end Jahmyr Gibbs, and we should be rocking and rolling. And, they have Colston Loveland, who they brought in. So, yeah, everything is working in his direction.
So, Russ, let me ask you this then to start things off here, because, you've written quarterback content up on the site, but one of the things I was talking about with everyone was that, you being a big dynasty guy, we're not going to be really looking at him as a QB1 target for just single quarterback leagues, but just in general, man, Cam Ward, what can we expect to see from this guy? What's his skill set, and what kind of growth are you expecting to see from him throughout the year?
Cam Ward, classic pocket quarterback. That's what he was at Washington State when he was there. Excellent distributor, cerebral. Of course, he's known for having the swag at Miami, but before that, he was more known as a game manager who didn't have much flash at Washington State. So it's funny how the difference a year can make. We saw the same thing with Bo Nix at Oregon and Auburn, where the perception was totally different by the time he left there. So I'm very curious how he ends up working out in Tennessee this year, but long term, he's a pretty safe floor.
Talking with Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay there on X. Russ also on TikTok. Just hilarious, Russ. I love how you just review, because you've been taking screenshots on TikTok of people that are sending them to you, and you've been reviewing their drafts very quickly. And I don't know if this is just part of your bit and the shtick that goes with it. The way that you do it so casually on TikTok, I think is just hilarious. I love how you're kind of just very casual about it and not just robotic. Well, you get an A.
So bummed. The last one I did, the download it's got a delay, so the audio and the video is mixed, so I couldn't actually post it, which I'm super bummed about, because I got my guy Cheeto DMing me pretzel recipes. I got to get this man his review. So I'm actually going to go live later today and do his review over, but maybe a turbo version. But yeah, that's the fun part. Dynasty is more the hobby end of the fantasy landscape, right? We're not making our yearly salary like we see some of these people in the sports betting and DFS and high stakes space. This is you can make money. We want you to win your league, but I don't think the point of dynasty leagues when they were created was to make money. I think it was just to hang out, talk smack with your buddies. And I think that is what it's evolved into. I see so many people with dynasty leagues now that were always redraft people, and now they're in their dynasty league. So that's the fun aspect of it.
Yeah, dude, trades are just insane. I feel like trades are just so constant because it's not just when you're in the season, but I'm in my dynasty basketball league, and as soon as the NBA finals were over, I got like 8 trade offers.
That's
people want to stack picks every year. So
and the fun of just telling everyone no and leave me alone, right? Right, Fensty?
Yes, although I will say this, Russ, I don't know if you do this. Because I'm so used to getting just dog crap trade offers in fantasy sports, when I get a good one, like I got actually a really good one in one of my keeper baseball leagues yesterday that I turned down, but I sat on for like most of the day. If it's a good trade, even if I decline it, I'll like text the person, be like, thank you for the offer.
Totally.
Because I'm used to getting such shit offers that I just like when I get one that's like very even and I'm like, okay, I see how this benefits him. I see how this benefits me. I legit reach out to the person and thank them for being fair.
Well, the thing I've moved to is with dynasty trades. Again, this is getting on my soapbox, but we are all connected in some way in this league, holding this straw built structure together. And if one sways too far, we're all tipping over. So right. We're in this together. So when I see a fair trade hit my inbox and it's like something I would reasonably want, sometimes I won't even counter. I'll just say, yeah, all right, I see your vision there. That's good enough for me. And, that doesn't happen all the time, but I have shifted towards that a little bit.
Yeah, and that's why it's like dynasty. It's got to have a lot of patience too to play in dynasty leagues, because especially for those that want to rebuild again and again and again. But you could take advantage of those people. Let them be like, "Oh, see you in 5 years." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll see you in 5 months. I just traded for a big name, and you can have my stinking draft picks. Enjoy 2035."
I'm going to be living in Bermuda in 2030, so you can have it. You can win then,
I don't get it's like always, Russ, in a dynasty league. If like, let's say you have a 12-team dynasty league, you always have 4 teams that just trade for picks, and they think they're so cool. And it's just, I don't get it. And I almost feel bad. I almost feel like I'm taking advantage of them, but they think, they're getting a first-round pick in 2027, and I'm getting like a decent, 3rd, 4th round equivalent snake draft guy for it.
But the off-season screenshot, something I enjoy quite as well. They win the off-season, and that is the main part of the like, we're all worried about our redrafts in season and our high stakes and all of our equity in the fantasy season. So, if our dynasty teams end up stinking in the regular season, Fensty, then so be it.
So let me ask you this, Russ, as we kind of shift back towards the redraft conversation for quarterbacks. So I was talking to everybody about kind of draft stock and draft capital that's required for the elite tier of quarterbacks. If you're going with maybe one in the elite tier and you go with an elite quarterback style draft, and they're ranging, I'm noticing, and that's, of course, Jackson, Allen, Burrow, Hurts, Daniels. They're ranging in rounds 3 through 5 right now, I'm seeing in 12-team leagues. But I got to ask you, man, Joe Burrow, I know we saw him throw more times than he ever has in his entire career. We know how accurate he is. We know he has the weapons, but without that rushing part of the game, is it worth, even in the 4th round, drafting a Joe Burrow as opposed to last year where you saw him going in the 7th and 8th round? It's double the price now.
It's a really tough equation. And I was actually talking to someone about Cam Newton yesterday.
Why?
And well, because Fensty, right? The narrative about Cam Newton now is like, he was kind of, it's not that great. And I'm like, hold on. Rookie year Cam was that was crazy for all of us. That was the same time Kaepernick was coming around and like RG3. And like we had those 2010s era where they all lasted a few years and they were done, and it wasn't sustainable.
And Andrew Luck just walked away.
And Andrew Luck was gone. And now these running quarterbacks, I mean, we're in what, year 6 or 7 of Lamar? It's tough to compete as a pocket quarterback now. And the thing with Burrow is getting to that round 4, like you're talking about, and kind of what you're hinting at. Now he's competing with Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen.
And these
Lamar.
are guys that are getting extra 6-point bonuses. I don't want to call it bonuses, but bumps, 6-point bumps, because they're rushing in scores.
Yeah. So that's a really tough equation. And I'm not drafting Burrow where that is. Not because I don't think he can, produce prolific numbers. It's not about that. It's more, well, I'll just rather wait and take a guy like Drake May later. Or if I'm going to go quarterback early, it'll probably just be Hurts.
You know what? I'm with you. And by the way, I'm seeing Hurts on recent draft boards, and I'm kind of like Fensty, the stockbroker. I'm like Gordon Gecko. I'm sitting there just looking at the Quotron the entire time, updating it as much as I can. Except the market never closes here. Everyone's drafting all hours of the night. Hell, you see in our Discord, everybody, if you're riding with the Elite Mafia, that we're doing drafters, best ball drafts at night. Jeff Mans is in them. I've seen Armando Marsal, Tyler Beaker. We're all in them, and we're all drafting. So the market never closes for us here. But just seeing Jalen Hurts be someone that you could get in the 5th round of a 12-teamer, to me, there's no more attractive quarterback target in that range, in any range, than Jalen Hurts this year.
Yeah, I surrender. I waved the white flag. I wasn't high on Hurts coming into like the NFL, especially after how Alabama and Oklahoma. I mean, he was pretty good at Oklahoma, but
he lacked accuracy until he got AJ Brown.
But it doesn't matter when you have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Goddard, and Saquon. Great line, and it's like, I give up, man. And his Vegas total for rushing touchdowns is over under 12.5 right now. Like, who am I to disagree with all this information that says this guy's going to be awesome? So
it's one thing. If the push got banned, it did not. So at least for another year, while we have this, let's exploit it. Let's utilize it.
Absolutely. So I'm locked in there for now. And Hurts has my respect.
Let's talk about some of the other quarterbacks here, Russ, because you mentioned Drake May, and let's just talk about this as QB1s. Next Wednesday, by the way, I'll say this next Wednesday when I'm back on again on this show, I will focus a little bit more on QB2 and Superflexes. For now, let's just talk QB1s here. Drake May, you're cool with him. You're cool with waiting until the 10th round to draft this guy as your QB1, saving all that capital.
Absolutely. Because if Drake May does get through the season, he will be a QB1. He is insane. And Josh Allen's insane. And these big quarterbacks, some of them are just insane. And sometimes it goes the Anthony Richardson route where he gets hurt instantly. He's out for the year. And then he's kind of limited going forward. But we have an open-ended equation with Drake May right now. Now, he has, of course, really good passing skills as well, and there's upside in the passing game. But the reason I like Drake May is that rushing upside and that goal line. The Patriots aren't good enough. They don't have a Saquon back there. I like Henderson, but they need Drake May to carry them like Josh Allen did in those early Bills years. They need him to do that this year for them to make a playoff run. So I'm banking on, again, another part of this is the anti-Pat Mahomes where he doesn't care about the regular season anymore. Drake May is going to care this year. These young guys are going to care. Caleb's going to Jaden's still going to care this year. So those are the guys I'm targeting. We have a long season ahead, and I think Drake May is going to be, that I forget who it was. Maybe it was a punter or a quarterback, but there's the guy who ran into the linebackers and he spun and it was some quarterback. I forget. He He jumped into the linebacker and he did a spin like almost a torpedo. So that's going to be Drake May this year, I think.
You mentioned Mahomes, and from what I've gathered from what you just said, doesn't seem like you're into him this year. And I was talking a little bit about before how Mahomes to me doesn't have a big major ceiling, but to me, he feels safe. The accuracy was still there. I knew he threw a little bit less. We could say what we want about Travis Kelce. I'm into them both, man. And you're still going to see this guy throw. They don't have the rushing attack where they're just going to completely, unless they're dominating a team, they're not going to completely just give it all to their running game or anything like that. I just think Mahomes is someone that still's got a high volume of passing. I still think that for what the price is for now, he's a safe option.
Absolutely. He is a safe option. He's a super high floor option. And the upside for him sits with Xavier Worthy. If Xavier Worthy takes a huge jump this year and becomes a really special speed threat, I won't say deep threat because in 2025, these guys are used all over the field. And, 160-pound guys, how long will they last getting used all over the field? I don't know. But he looked great in the playoffs last year, with or without Rashee Rice there. He has a skill set that is really special. So I think Mahomes' upside sits there. Ultimately, he's going to be fine. He's a pocket quarterback at this point in his career. So I do think he could hit a higher ceiling passing wise than we're currently projecting. Ever since he got hurt on that QB sneak where he dislocated his knee, they just haven't ran with him. And I just don't think they will.
Because he can scramble, man. That was one of the things about him. He had, like, early on, you knew he could scramble. And yeah, you're right. That's just not as much a part of the game. But the draft capital isn't as severe as it is for a Joe Burrow.
Absolutely. So we like the passing game there this year. With or without Rice, I think they're going to be fine. It's just the running for me.
Who are a few quarterbacks that you're just not into, no matter how far they may fall in drafts?
Oh, well, okay. So this is an easy one, right?
You told me, and by the way, I'm going to cut you off and tell you, and you're going to hate me for this. The Colts situation, you can't go.
No.
Told me the Colts situation.
No, it's good. It's like that though. It's like that. It's the same thing. It's just different. The Arthur Smith headline. Did you read the camp report of the Steelers and them using like 4 tight ends?
Yes, I did. And everyone was making like a love fest between Arthur Smith and Jonnu Smith.
Listen, it's gonna suck for fantasy probably. But this is going to be hilarious and awesome, and I can't wait to see Arthur Smith doing this. But it's not going to be good for Rodgers. It's not. That's just not. Rodgers is so done as far as fantasy is concerned. Can he run that offense? Probably. I think especially with all the Arthur Smithy stuff. But fantasy-wise, that's just a no.
He threw the third most or the second most passes last year. Like he was like top 4 in passes. I'm a Jets fan, and I forgot that because
it still didn't equate to like the fantasy upside, and he had Wilson and a bunch of solid weapons. So now he's got Metcalf and 4 tight end sets. So.
Yeah, I told you the story about how I lost Jalen Hurts and then maybe it was Anthony Richardson at the end. I lost Hurts, and then I had to pick up a quarterback for my championship. Might have been Richardson, who was then ruled out. I had to pick up someone else. I pick up Bryce Young as a placeholder because I'm left with nothing. But then the morning of, I checked the waiver wire, and Aaron Rodgers was there, and he was facing the Bills. We're going to kick the Jets' ass. He was chasing down a record, so I thought he was going to force the throws, and Bryce Young gets about 16.5 points, fantasy points, and Aaron Rodgers gets 0.5. And you can imagine how my championship was impacted because of that.
Maybe a few of those in 2025 as well.
Yeah, just ugh. But let me ask you this, though. With what coming off of what you saw, what we all saw with the Steelers and the formation, just in general, and I know I'm kind of throwing a little curveball at you, Caleb Johnson, can you see him getting 15 plus carries a game on average?
Absolutely. They're going to need it. They're going to absolutely.
His draft capital is like in an auction, it's like 10 to 12 bucks. It's nothing.
I'm locked in. I think that's an easy click. Now, of course, we saw what Najee Harris did with that role, and it wasn't always an elite fantasy season. But at the end of the day, you're looking in that draft range. If you can get 1,100, 1,200 yards from that guy, and I think Caleb Johnson is really talented. If he can really thrive in that role, especially with Arthur Smith, I mean, coming away from Atlanta where Tyler Algier looked amazing at times in that offense and system. So if he can take any of that and really boost Johnson's year one stuff, I mean, if he gets 300, 325 touches, he's going to be an RB1.
That would be great value if you could get it. It's going to be an exciting rookie class this year overall to see how these guys flourish, some of them. From the quarterback side, you mentioned Drake May before. Drake May going very late. And you said as a quarterback one in one quarterback league, in around that range where Drake May is going, who are a few other quarterbacks that you were privy to drafting in those one quarterback leagues?
All right. Here's a gross one that nobody's going to actually like, and I don't even know if I like it, but I am clicking the button on Bryce Young, which is late.
As a quarterback one, like as your quarterback one in a 12-team league.
Oh, no.
Okay.
So we're talking Drake Mays, like QB, what, 15 to 20-ish right now?
Yeah, and again, I want to just make sure, I want to now backtrack. You're cool. One quarterback starting league, no two QB, no Superflex. Drake May as your starting fantasy quarterback. You're cool with that?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm cool with it.
Okay. Now in that range, in the same parameters, who would you be cool with? Who else would you be good with drafting?
I mean, Trevor Lawrence is someone I'm locked in on. Of course, I have to be. I was locked in on him last year and the year prior, and they had significantly worse weapons. Coming into this year, they have a better offensive system. Seems like for the first time they have stability, and Brian Thomas coming into year two. Brenton Strange, they let go of Evan Ingram. I really like that play there. Travis Hunter's a complete wild card. We don't know what we're getting there, but certainly a lot of upside. And then they added De'Ami Brown, which is really sneaky. Washington wishes they kept him right now, especially with the Terry McLaurin.
Oh my God.
But he came on in the playoffs and played like an every week role for them on their playoff run, and including that Lions win. So I'm shocked they let him go, but that's great for the Jags.
I mean, while we're talking about the Terry McLaurin situation, let's say they trade him and they don't get back a wide, which look, let's face it, they trade him. It's going to be a lot of, it's going to be draft capital based. That's what a lot of the focus is going to be. And it's probably very unlikely they get a wide receiver even back that can somewhat fill his shoes. Terry McLaurin gets traded. How does that impact Jaden Daniels from a fantasy standpoint?
Okay, so super biased, super Jaden Daniels fan. That's me at this point. After what he did in that playoffs last year, I'm all in. I think he's NFC Mahomes. I'm locked in on that take. So we are gonna, no matter what, we're keeping the blinders on. We're going forward with this take, no matter what, with or without Terry. You can come with us or you're not. I'm going. Is it going to be ugly finding those deep targets? Yes. But they have Ertz. They have Ben Sinnott going into year two. They drafted Luke McCaffrey last year in the third round. I think a lot of us view Luke McCaffrey as like a late round guy. And really, they drafted him high. They had high conviction in him last year. So it's going to be ugly, but my take is you can find whether it's a small, speedy guy or some big deep threat, they're a little more expendable than they were a decade ago. So you can probably find a guy who runs a 4.2, can space the field. Running's a huge part of his fantasy game.
Yep.
So if that continues, I think he's going to be fine.
I mean, but you'd have to think that the instant reaction among especially the casual fantasy player is that they're going to they might steer away from him
Oh,
at
yeah.
a fourth round price point. And now there could be a big buying opportunity here where if Jaden Daniels in 12-team leagues slips down to that 6th round, I don't see him going as far as 7th, but you take a target like McLaurin off the field now out of his weaponry, there could be that 3-round drop, and that becomes a major buying opportunity. Remember, last year we were getting this guy in the 10th round.
And he didn't have a huge passing season last year. 3,500 yards, 25 passing touchdowns. And that was with McLaurin. It wasn't like they were putting up 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns. It was a serviceable passing game, and then he had 800 rushing yards, which is preposterous. So I don't think that's going to happen again, but he is going to be running again, and that's where the fantasy value is.
Russ, what's coming up for you at fantasyguru.com? Because we've just got so much content locked and loaded and still coming out. The Manifesto just came out. I am trying to read every single word. It is a lot. It's a lot of content from Jeff Mans there. What about you?
Yeah, we have a lot of stuff coming out. I think I have 4 or 5 podcasts coming out in the next week, if they're not already out. So definitely check out our podcast series.
Ours on consistency comes out on Monday on the site.
Sweet. So yeah, and then I have one with Jeff. So I did one with Justin here, and a few other people. So definitely check out the podcast series. That's really good stuff. And then, continuing with the dynasty rankings updates, you mentioned the dynasty roster reviews. I'm going to be going live later today to redo Mr. Cheeto's dynasty roster there. And I do have my rookie expectation series that is continuing. So that'll happen. And live stream on Tuesday nights. So come hang out.
Yep, the roster coach. Make sure 7 p.m. Eastern at fantasyguru.com. You go and check that out. Russ normally joins Fantasy Sports Daily when Ray's hosting every single Friday to talk all things fantasy football, getting you ready for your drafts. Remember, when you're part of fantasyguru.com, you also have access to the Dynasty Discord room when you sign up, especially for that all-in package. And that's where Russell, I'd say, of any of our Discord channels, I always say that I spend the most time in the NBA betting and the DFS NBA channels. I'd say for you, it's probably the NFL Dynasty channel that we have.
The Dynasty channel is my go-to. And I like our setup, though. We have a really good Discord setup for this year. So go check it out. And if you are someone who's into season long, it's really set up well this year. So get excited.
Get excited indeed. Get ready. I got some more content coming out. I believe we've got our betting series that's coming out starting next week. I'll have a little bit of a futures conversation for you guys right there. But I will be back. Ray Flower's going to be back from vacation on Monday, so you'll get him noon Eastern. I'll be with you guys on Wednesday. Russ, like he said, he'll be on the Roster Coach live stream this Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, and then he'll be back with Ray here on Friday. Russ, as always, man, thank you so much for hanging with me.
Thanks, Justin.
Yep, for Russell Clay, I'm Justin Fensterman. All week long, it's been awesome hanging with you right here, but don't go anywhere because Ray Flowers makes his return to talk about the 85 baseball deadline deals that took place. So get excited, get ready. Russell Clay, I'm Justin Fensterman at Fensty Sports on X and Instagram, FENSTY Sports. Fantasy Sports Daily on the Elite Plus Network, powered by FantasyGuru.com.